Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rake the Take, a golf betting podcast hosted by me, Chris Lewis. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the Valspar Championship, which takes place at the Copperhead course at Innisbrook Resort. Like all the other Florida courses that we cover during this stretch, it is a complete ball striking test. There's lots of water hazards and that kind of crap. I will say though, it's not as penal from the fairway as some of these other places that they play, like TPC Sawgrass and Bay Hill, where the rough can really be very thick and hard to control the ball out of. But I still think that this is a difficult course overall. You should see a lot of high scoring at times and some bogeys. So I really don't think it's one of those places where you can just kind of be lackadaisical with your short game. That being said, even though that the greens are difficult to really kind of reach and put into scoring position, and the fairways are kind of narrow at times, making driving accuracy an important skill set. It's not as extreme as some of these other places. And around the greens, you can kind of the bunkering and like I said, because of the rough not being as thick, chipping and sand saving is not as difficult historically in comparison to some other courses that they play, especially in Florida. But I will say that the greens are actually a lot more difficult than on some of these other places. So good putting can take you a long way here, even if you aren't necessarily a great ball striker. That's not unusual, but I will say that chipping and sand saving is not as critical in predicting who will do well this week. Like the players, for example, that's a place where you need to have some great ability around the greens, especially because of how interesting some of the runoffs can be on that course. But this course doesn't really have a lot of that. It's just more so smaller greens that you need to kind of be accurate with. But yeah, let's just kind of get into the picks. To start off my betting card, I am going with the favorite, Tommy Fleetwood, who moved to 11-1 and became the favorite after the tee times came out. He did catch the better side of the draw this week, playing in the morning. I will say that the morning tee times, are going to be a lot more generous, but some more information has come out recently saying that the whole day is just going to be difficult. So it may not be as much of an advantage as we thought yesterday. That's just kind of how golf works sometimes, weather be weather. But yeah, Tommy Fleetwood, he's just been playing excellent golf over the past year plus. He's been really trending towards some kind of victory. And I would honestly say that this is some of the best form of his life, if not the best form of his life. He's fifth on Data Golf right now, which is absolutely nuts. I definitely would not have expected that coming into the year. But it's not like something I would have completely wrote off, because he has been excellent with his irons, and that's really what has kind of catapulted him to this position, especially on the odds board. He's just been so good with his approaches. He's been he's in the 99th percentile right now, so he's right up there with Scotty Scheffler and Colin Morikawa as one of the best approach players in the world. And, like all these guys, he has a complete game. There's really nothing you can look at Tommy Fleetwood and say that there's a major flaw, other than the fact that he just doesn't win a lot on the PGA Tour. He wins a lot on the DP World Tour and in other places, but not on the PGA Tour, sadly. That being said, I love him this week. I think it's too good to pass him up, even at these odds where he's getting the better side of the draw. He's just such a good player at this point. The putting could be a little bit better, but overall, like, I just think he's a class above the other players in this field. Even a guy like Justin Thomas, who we just haven't really seen be all that consistent. You know, guys like Sepp Straka, they can definitely rival with his current form lately, but I still think that Fleetwood is a tier above a tier above Straka right now, even though Straka has been so good. I just really love where his game is at, and it feels like all signs are pointing towards Tommy Fleetwood having a great week this week. His course history here is great, so I mean, it just feels like this is a no brainer type of pick. Even though he obviously has not won yet on the PGA Tour, I'm betting him with a lot of confidence. He deserves to be the favorite in this field, and I think he's going to get it done. I truly do. What could go wrong when betting Tommy Fleetwood as a favorite? I mean, he'll probably miss the cut at this point, given I'm taking him, but who cares, man? You got to back our guns and see what happens. He's just been awesome, and I don't want to miss out on a chance to see him pull one out, especially in a field that's not as strong. A lot of the top players that are in this event have not been as good as him, not even close. Even a guy like Xander Schauffele, who has fallen out of the top 10 on the Data Golf's rankings, and even a guy like Sam Burns, who's won here before. I mean, Sam Burns, if you look at his ball striking numbers, they're terrible. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's just I would much rather bet Fleetwood at his number than Corey Connors at 28-1, even though Connors is coming off back-to-back good starts. I mean, it just is. Connors is not a guy that really wins a ton, even though he is in good form. But it's like Xander and Shane, Tom Kim. I mean, Tom Kim. I mean, he had some good ball striking numbers last week, but he is so inconsistent. I can't even predict when he's going to have a good week, really. Michael Kim at 28-1 is just way too short. You look at the favorites for this event, and it's just there's just good reason why Tommy Fleetwood is at the numbers that he's at. He's just been excellent, and I'm willing to back that at that price. You can get him at 10-1. I mean, that's a little steep, but 11 I think is a good point where I would just say, hey, anything up higher than that or at 11, I would confidently take. And I'm just kind of building my card around him this week. I can't say enough good stuff about Tommy Fleetwood and how he's been playing. I just think it's a prime opportunity to take somebody like that. But moving on, we got three more other players on my betting card this week. And they are, to start off with, Rasmus Neergaard-Petersen. He's the next one. And he's a name that some of you may not be familiar with because he's more been a fast riser as of late. He's somebody that who's catapulted up the official World Golf rankings over the past year, after having an amazing season in 2024 on the Challenge Tour. He won 3 events on the Challenge Tour, and just overall in 2024, 15 top 20s, 6 top 5s, 3 wins, which allowed him to seal up his DP World Tour card. And towards the end of 2024, he really started playing those events. It had some good finishes, a tie for 13 at the Spanish Open, a top 5 at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, top 20 at the French Open, top 20 at the Genesis Championship, and then finished in the top 5 in the Challenge Tour final to end the 2024 season. And then if you go back into this year, in this season, he had a top 10 at the Australian PGA Championship, a tie for 10th finish at the Hero Dubai Desert Classic, and then now he's coming off back-to-back second-place finishes, one at the Qatar Masters and one at the Puerto Rico Open. So clearly, he is in excellent form right now, and if you look at his statistics and his strokes gained measures, he has just been awesome on approach lately. He is creating so many opportunities with his approach play. And he's also been long and accurate. I mean, that's a great recipe for success, just in general. Being long and accurate and having great iron play, sign me up. I don't care what kind of fields you're in, what you're doing. The fact that he's being able to post these kind of results, especially on courses that he doesn't know, is just a complete signal to me that this guy is a good player. And to be in this field, to gain this opportunity without even, he's barely even scratched the DP World Tour coming from the Challenge Tour. It is amazing what he is doing. And it is without a doubt worth acknowledging. For around the greens and on the greens, I'd say he's a little bit more spiky. He has some spike weeks with the putter, but it seems like overall he is a decent putter. And it's just around the greens where maybe he has some inconsistencies. But I don't really, doesn't really feel like to me that is a major hindrance to him in comparison to other players. So because of the ball striking, I'm willing to bet him with a lot of confidence. He did catch the bad side of the wave, but you can get him at 90 to 100 to 1, and I think that's well worth the price to take a shot on him this week. It seemed, I mean, obviously it's not, obviously it's his first real PGA Tour event outside of the Puerto Rico Open, but I really like his chances. I mean, I think he's done nothing but shown how productive he can be. And I think he is a very good player. I think he is a very good player. And I really hope that he can continue his success this week. But I'm very impressed overall by his statistical profile. So yeah, I'm taking him at 90 to 100 to 1. Danny Walker, he just had an excellent week at the Players Championship. If you watched last week, he was the second alternate coming into the event and took Jason Day's place after Jason Day withdrew that morning. So he basically had no chance to bet him if he wanted to going into the week. He just kind of appeared randomly on the betting in the field, I should say, not the betting odds board, but he appeared randomly in the field right after that WD from Jason Day and took well advantage of it. Finishing tied for sixth for the tournament. I mean, if you look at his statistics for the week, just some excellent ball striking. He was wonderful off the tee, showing respectable distance and accuracy, and had his best approach week on the PGA Tour thus far. And that's really been the skill set that's been kind of hit or miss for him. He just hasn't really been all that great with his approaches. He did finish tied for 42nd, though, at the Farmers, even with some negative approach play, which I found to be really encouraging because of how difficult the conditions were that week, that he was able to be, put up a respectable finish, even with those numbers. So I'm not really worried about him. I think the play in Mexico was very encouraging, and obviously last week's finish was great. So I think with him, you look at the 2024 results in the Korn Ferry Tour, and he just consistently finished within the top 25 at events. And so that's what was really impressive to me. And some other things that are really good on his statistical profile, around the greens, he's been very consistent. The putting has been kind of hit or miss, so we'll see what happens with that. But overall, though, I really like the statistical profile. Long off the tee, good short game, maybe some spotty iron play, but overall, I think good for the most part. So I'm willing to keep kind of riding the momentum, for lack of a better term, with Danny Walker and see what happens. You can get him at 125 to 150 to 1. He's in the morning wave. So I think Danny Walker has a good chance to repeat some excellent results from last week. And then moving on to our last player, I have Jackson Suber again this week. So yeah, hopefully it's third time's a charm with him. He just has not paid off for us. He was so close to, at least having some respectable finish at the Cognizant before having a quad or triple bogey on the final hole to fall out of the top 40 and top 20. If he just had a birdie on that hole, he would have sealed up his top 20 bet as well, which is crazy. But it's just with Suber, he clearly has some talent. He's a great approach player. He's able to create a lot of opportunities. It's just with the driver, it's not an issue with length, it's an issue of accuracy. And on some of these Florida courses, you just can't be hitting your drives into the water. And that's the thing about the players. It's like he really didn't play all that bad. He was pretty average for the most part. It was just off the tee, he was abysmal. And when you're putting yourself in bad positions like that, where you can just create big numbers, it's going to be very hard to have any sort of success. But he's 250 to 1 this week in this field, and I feel like that's a fine number for me to take a chance on him. I think with Suber, it's just I don't want to say a matter of time until he finds good results because the sample size is so small. Like with Danny Walker, I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if he had an abysmal week this week. But I think with Suber, you know, I just am still really encouraged by the approach play, and that's what really matters to me. Is the fact that he's able to create a lot of opportunities. He's not abysmal by any means around the greens. It's just off the tee has been kind of a struggle for him, because he just does not really have a lot of great accuracy, and that's been a problem. So if that's something that he's able to fix this week, I think at 250 to 1, it's a good chance to be able to see him, finally have a good week for us. But outside of that, that's my card for this week. It's a little bit of a lighter week, but I like the action that we got going on. I feel very confident about Fleetwood, and we got some upside plays as well. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week. And best of luck if you tail.